Ross, I've got to ask you about that game in particular. To see a young player like a Jaden Daniels, describe that, will you? Because we watch him on TV, we see him, but to see him perform in person, what is that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think the biggest thing is just how calm he is. How poised he is. I was saying this last week, but there's been a lot of good quarterbacks, a lot of good players. But the reality is, some guys like Joe Montana or Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, they clearly play their best when it matters the most, right? We see that. We know that. There are other guys that they just don't, and it's nobody's fault, but they just don't play their best when it matters the most. And, Lamar Jackson's probably a pretty good example of that, right or wrong. He has not played his best football in the playoffs for the Baltimore Ravens. And so I think that's going to be the most encouraging thing for the Commanders is that Jaden Daniels, he plays his best when it matters the most. I mean, that fourth quarter against Philly in Week 16, the Sunday night game against the Falcons, Week 17, obviously what he did in the playoffs against the Bucks, that last drive, of course, the Lions game. And I thought he played pretty darn well again against the Eagles. I actually thought it was the defense and the guys fumbling that let him down as much as anything else.
Ross Tucker, former Dallas Cowboy, joining us here on the Blitz on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. You think, Ross, about watching one of your former teams in Washington. I know you do a lot of work with the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles going back to the Super Bowl, same Super Bowl we had a couple of years ago. But the narrative out there about the officiating. Now, I don't believe any official is on the take, but there is a perception problem in the NFL when it comes to the officials and Patrick Mahomes. For Philadelphia, how much talk in the Pennsylvania area is that this week in leading? Do you think there'll be that kind of talk next week? And as a former player, how much do you think about that in the locker room if you were getting ready to go play Patrick Mahomes, where if you breathe on him, it's going to cost you 15?
Well, I don't want to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but on the one hand, you don't think about the officiating at all because you can't control it. And whether you think it could be a factor or not, you know that you need to make the plays that need to be made to win the game like the Bills didn't do. I mean, the Bills had so many chances in that game. The Dalton Kincaid drop and Cole Bishop gets the interception ripped away and they get stuffed 3 times on quarterback sneaks. The flip side, though, I would say the one aspect of it you probably do think about is the fact that you got to be really careful when you're around Mahomes and not to get near his head or neck area, not to go low when he slides late or he's going out of bounds. He might be the best I've seen at being able to find a way to draw the foul. You go back to that Houston game, he gets hit by Will Anderson, not that hard. He snapped his head back like he got whiplash in a car accident going 65 miles an hour. And I think that's what really drew the foul there. And then later on, he saw 2 defenders converging on him. He just dropped his butt at the last second. He just dropped down. He's just very, very good, I would say, at knowing how to draw the penalty. So I think if you're the Eagles, you really got to be conscious of that. You got to be very, very careful of that you don't want to give the officials a chance to throw a penalty flag like that.
Ross, I'm curious what you think, because Jason and I have been talking about this all week. The NFL and a lot of fans believe that the Kansas City Chiefs have the refs in their pocket. I don't believe that that's true, but that seems to be the perception. Is that a problem for the NFL?
I think it is in the sense that perception is reality. I think, the AFC Championship game just was the best rated championship game since like 88 or something. So I don't think they would say this out loud, but on some level, and you guys obviously have that Dallas Cowboys flag in your studio there. On some level, any publicity is good publicity, and controversy sells. And so if people watch the Chiefs because they love them, or they love Taylor Swift, or because they hate them and want them to lose, then that's probably good for the NFL. So I don't think it really hurts them that much. And to me, like, this whole conversation of people like that, these conspiracy theories, I think are like embarrassing. Well, I just want someone to tell me, how does it unfold? Like, where's the meeting where they say, hey, in a situation like this, give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt because of betting? That's ludicrous. Because of Taylor Swift and ratings, I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit more reasonable. But again, you don't think that would get out? You don't think that, like, people would somehow know that if they have these meetings with these refs? Like, I just think it's crazy.
Ross Tucker joining us here on the Blitz. Now, you mentioned Taylor Swift. Is she going to get proposed to? I know you know her and her family and all that from your hometown, Ross. Is Travis going to propose to her after he wins the Super Bowl next Sunday?
I have no idea. and if I did know, I sure as heck wouldn't say it on the radio in San Antonio. That would surprise me. That doesn't really seem like it's her style. But I don't know, man. I have no idea whatsoever. Zero inside information as it relates to look. I think there's like people who their whole job for like People Magazine. I think their whole job is to try to find that information out. I'm not going to know just because she lived where I lived, so she was like 14 or 15 and then moved to Nashville.
Well, I tell you, they were pretty lovey-dovey after the AFC Championship game. So who knows? Maybe it's one of those fairy tale endings. I'm not sure. Ross, I'm curious, what do you think about the goings-on with the Dallas Cowboys? Brian Schottenheimer, the new head coach, Mike McCarthy out.
Yeah, it seems like a mess. It seems like they wanted McCarthy back, but only on a one-year deal. He felt a little bit slighted, thought he could get more years than that, and then it didn't happen for him. I think if they both took some truth serum, I think that they would both say that they would have been better off doing a 2-year deal with Mike McCarthy to stay as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That's not what happened. They went with Brian Schottenheimer. Now, I'll say this. I know that move has been panned by people. I know that nobody likes the Brian Schottenheimer hire. I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, the reality is nobody knows anything. I mean, we all act like we do, but you mentioned I do the Eagles preseason games. 2016, they hired Doug Peterson, and multiple outlets ranked it as the worst hire out of 7 in 2016. 2017, the Eagles won their only Super Bowl in franchise history. 4 years ago, the last head coach position filled was the Philadelphia Eagles. They hired a guy that didn't even call the plays for the Colts, named Nick Sirianni. Frank Reich called the plays. Well, the Eagles won the Super Bowl for the second time in the last 3 years. So the reality is Ben Johnson might be terrible. Brian Schottenheimer might be awesome. We don't really know how any of these guys will do until they're in that chair. A little bit more about Vrabel and Pete Carroll, I would say. There's kind of like a floor for those guys because they're a little bit more proven. But especially the guys that have never done it before, nobody has any idea.
Ross Tucker joining us here on the Blitz, 94.1 at San Antonio Sports Star. That said, in the room, a lot of players seem to be excited about Schotty. They know him, the fact that he was promoted from within. In your travels as a player, and I don't know how many coaching changes you went through, but if there's a coaching change, is it better to promote from within when say McCarthy, we don't know if he was fired or they say mutual, and we know how that goes, but does anything really change, or how much actually changes when somebody gets promoted from within when it looks like a lot of change needs to happen?
Yeah, a couple thoughts on that. One is if they like the guy, then I think usually they're thrilled with promotions from within because they have a relationship with him. They're comfortable with him, all those things. The other thing I would say is, to your point, I had 9 head coaches in the NFL, 9. And the guy I thought was the most impressive one, I thought was the best coach of the 9 that I had, was Marty Schottenheimer, Brian's dad. And I had Bill Parcells, I had Bill Belichick, I had Joe Gibbs. I had like Hall of Fame coaches. All 3 of those guys were great in their own right. But owner, and I could have any of those guys at the age of 50, I think I'd probably go with Marty. I thought he was the most impressive of those guys. And so we'll see how much of that, that has rubbed off on Brian.
Ross, and I'm with you to a certain extent when it comes to Schottenheimer. We don't know, and he may turn out to be great. Isn't it, though, incumbent now on Jerry Jones to give him some pieces to coach and to play with and some players to get out there and win with?
Yes, if you are of the mindset that Jerry Jones is doing anything and everything possible to win, which I no longer am. There's just the evidence is mounting that at some point it feels like Jerry Jones discovered or decided that winning Super Bowls is really hard. There's a lot of variance. A lot of things have to go your way, and that it's a lot easier to control winning in the bank account. Being the team that makes the most money. There's not a lot of logic for a lot of things that go on with the Cowboys these days in terms of how they handle contracts, how they handle situations. And so at this point, I am not a believer that they're going to make a big move to make upgrades to the team. They wait on Dak, they wait on CD, they wait on Micah, they move on from Biadish or Tony Pollard, make no real attempt to upgrade certain positions. I don't know. I would be a little disheartened if I were a Cowboys fan these days.
Yeah, I think you're speaking the truth there. And clearly, Ross, you're a smart guy as we visit with Ross Tucker here on the Blitz. You went to Princeton. And to your point about the Dallas Cowboys and the arrogance, this was Stephen Jones the other day during the press conference.
This drought that people say we're in terms of a championship game or a Super Bowl.
This drought, and he used air quotes. How do you define drought? It's been 30 years.
I don't know. I mean, I guess he's happy that they've had a bunch of playoff seasons and a bunch of winning seasons. I don't know what other way to take that. Every other team has been in the NFC Championship game. They're the Dallas Cowboys. They make the most money. They should actually have. They should have an advantage because they can give a huge signing bonus and spread it out over years. They should have an advantage because of all the primetime games they play and guys wanting that spotlight. To think that they are the last team to do it when they have built-in advantages is even more concerning to me.
Well, Ross, I got to ask you, I think we could talk to you for an hour or two, but I've got to ask you about the Super Bowl. Who do you like? Who's going to win that thing? Are we going to see history made?
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, listen, I think the Eagles are a better team, better roster, but I don't know how you pick against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in a one-score game, especially against Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. I mean, they can certainly do it, and it'd be awesome if they did, and it'd be impressive. But I think if the Eagles win, I think it's like 34-23. I think the Eagles win by 2 scores. So one-score game, I think you got to give the edge clearly to the Chiefs, something like 27-24.
Ross Tucker here on the Blitz. And, Ross, I mean, whatever, it's going to be front page news all over the place. Valentine's right around the corner. You've been a part of this very cool for years now called My Front Page Story, which creates incredible gifts.
Well, it's the best Valentine's Day gift I've ever seen, right? People don't know what to get their significant other for Valentine's Day, to be able to have a professional writer write a story about your wife and how amazing she is, what a great mom she is, whatever the story, whatever your story is, to be able to give it to her, it's framed. It looks beautiful. It looks like it's on the cover of the newspaper. To be able to give it to her and say, honey, I want to do something special for you this year. So I had a story written about you. That just sounds incredible. When she reads the quotes from you and maybe the kids, she will cry tears of joy. And then it's the gift that keeps on giving because it'll be hanging up in the house for years. myfrontpagestory.com, myfrontpagestory.com. She is worth it, fellas. Best Valentine's Day gift I've ever seen. myfrontpagestory.com.
And this is true. I'm curious, Ross, how creative can your writers be? Because it doesn't necessarily just have to be for Valentine's Day, although that's the next thing that everybody's going, oh, crap, what am I going to get? But I'm curious, our boss got an email yesterday that she's been named top 50 women leaders of San Antonio for 2025. And she was all excited and read there's like a ridiculous damn near $500 fee to get the award and get whatever recognition. So Ryan Eagle and I were thinking, well, what if we just got her a My Front Page story saying, hey, you're a great leader and you don't have to spend $500. Can we get something done with a little bit of sarcasm to it, but to honor her honor?
That idea. I love that idea. You should absolutely do it. Do me a favor, reach out to me, Jay. We'll get that done for you. She deserves it. myfrontpagestory.com. I got to run. The next one's calling me.
Appreciate you,
fellas.
Ross. Good stuff. Ross Tucker here on the Buyers Barricades guest line, where they provide traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond, online at buyersbarricades.com.